Hi everyone, the Maverick here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new OC's album, Smote Reverser. This is a brand new album from John Dwyer and the gang, OC's, the San Fran psych and garage rock outfit who has been on a pretty creative streak lately, with a run of albums that have featured some of the band's best production and musical performances yet. Mutilator defeated at last, A Weird exits their previous full-length record, Orc, and now they are pretty much adding to this electrifying new direction with Smote Reverser, and there were quite a few reasons that I was psyched for this record. These past few records have marked a really exciting time in the OC's discography, where the band is taking their psych and garage roots and delivering unto us these punked out, sometimes krautrockian jams in these styles that are pretty cutting edge, with great performances and chemistry, solid and tight solos. The cover on this thing looks incredible. Seems like some kind of interdimensional being or a beast from the depths of hell is rising up and destroying the whole world. Looking forward to that. And one of the big teaser tracks to this record, Overthrown, kind of sounded like OC's going metal, but without losing touch with their psych and garage roots. The track seemed like it could be the next chapter in this sort of explosive leg of the band's discography. Overall, though, now that I've been able to hear the entire album, Smote, unfortunately, is not that wall-to-wall exciting next chapter in the band's discography, though I do think it is a solid addition to this latest string of albums. Overthrown, as great as the track is with its intense and speedy drumming, the really abrasive guitars and vocals which are just scorched with distortion, the wailing guitar leads too, the track is kind of an anomaly in the track list. The closest the band comes again to sounding this murderous and satanic is on the track Enrique El Cobrador, which has very devilish lead vocals, some fuzzy bass, some expressive drum fills. It seems like the band are kind of pulling a page out of the Black Sabbath playbook and dipping it in LSD. It's kind of a fun take, but there are a bunch of tracks from the band's last album that blow this one out of the water in terms of character and heaviness and intensity, namely the song Animated Violence, whose metal appeals I think I appreciate a lot more in retrospect. I digress though. The issue that I have with this album generally, a lot of tracks on it, is that they go pretty far, but do they go far enough? In comparison with some of OC's recent works, a lot of the material on Smote Reverser is not nearly as risky. The performances are kind of mild, and some of the ideas here are a little ill-conceived. Like the track C, which is a pretty steamy, groovy, very nicely paced piece of psychedelic blues rock, with these cheeky falsetto vocals delivering these kind of creepy lyrics about creatures crawling in the morning light. There are some sweet solo passages. It's not a bad tune, but throughout the entire track there are these really persistent field recordings of like a field at night where you just hear a lot of crickets chirping. I like the extra bit of texture it adds to some points in the song, but at the volume that it's at throughout the entire recording, I just don't see what it adds. Meanwhile, the track Sentient OONA is a nice slow burner with chilling vocal harmonies, primal drums, and explosive organ passage. All of this is presented in a pretty linear fashion, but considering the amount of time the track takes to build all of this up, it's kind of an odd choice for an intro, as it's not exactly the most accurate tone setter for the entire record. It doesn't really feel like that grand of an entrance. It just feels like I've been thrown into a record that's already been playing for 15 minutes before I arrived. The track Last Piece has a lot of great things going for it. It's weepy fiddles, it's kind of downtrodden background vocals, but the song, the instrumentation, pretty much everything about this track is really faint, weirdly EQ'd and mixed, kind of buried. The only thing about it that's upfront and clear are the drums, which are oddly raw and don't feel like they have been treated all that carefully. I mean, I get the band typically embraces some lo-fi aesthetics in their recordings, but the way The instrumentation on this track has been balanced for the first leg, just reads like I'm listening to a demo. But then there's a total shift in sound and style with this very intense krautrockian jam for the entire second half of the track, which is great. It's actually one of the most exciting moments on the entire record, but it doesn't change the fact the track had a very rough start. Then there's the longest song on the entire record, Anthemic Aggressor, which is very much a head-scratcher. It's 12 minutes in length and comes off as one of the album's most improvisational moments too. The band gives themselves a lot of space to color with, but what do they do with it outside of some faintly glitched out, barely audible, constantly dipping in and out guitars with some really aimless noodling too? It just kind of sounds like I'm listening to a radio signal fade out as I'm driving away from it. The soloing does get tedious after a while, and the track really does not justify its length all that well outside of maybe throwing on some sour harmonies. There's a kind of climactic and intense finish which features more layers of instrumentation, something I wish there was a bit more of throughout the track. I do give it to the rhythm section on the track though. The steady bass, the fantastic drums on this cut are very much what holds the whole thing together. The song Flies Bump Against the Glass is one of those slow, groovy moments that warrants a crowd of people kind of waving lighters in the air, but given the kind of occult tone of the keyboards on the track, maybe less lighters and more floor candles assembled into a pentagram. Either way, the track feels kind of like an endless introduction that never quite resolves and just sort of fizzles out at the end after almost 5 minutes of less than flattering guitar leads and soloing. Then there's the very mystical but uneventful closing track on this thing, Beat Quest, whose wah 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 lead synth melodies really kind of bury a lot of what else is in the mix and is really kind of a blemish on the track. Please don't take my critiques of this album as being incredibly harsh, because in all honesty, there's very little material on this record that I would say is so bad that I wish to skip it. And there are at least several very great cuts on this record that I think stand out really well. Again, Overthrow, intro track is fantastic. Abysmal Urn, which features these really fiery, explosive, electrifying lead guitars. It's really rebellious, it's wild, it's got some solid verses too. Some lyrics about what seems like our troubled generation. The song Nailhouse Needle Boys has one of the best grooves on the entire record. I love the wailing harmonized guitar leads that sort of ascend as the track is propelling forward. The bluesy electric piano riffs on this cut are really nice too. And the song Moonbog is one of the most truly frightening ballads on this record and really of the band's past several. Overall, I just think Smote Reverser is okay. It's just a little hit or miss, not nearly as exciting as what the band has been doing for the past few years, and that's kind of it. Much of what has made the band's recent material so exciting does translate over onto this new LP, but with less compelling songs and solos and jams, less ambition, fewer risks. I'm not really sure what comes next for OCs after this album, but the band is always changing up the script, so regardless, there will be reason to check out the new one. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, music forever.